to Module 2 of the Canadian Drone Pilots Guide. We're excited to have you.
As an advisory, both our Android and iOS app are in beta stages. For web application assistance, email info@dronecenter.com.
For those of you looking to sign up, please visit our web app online at dronecenter.com. We're excited to have you. So in this module, we'll be covering pilot certification, flight reviews, a case study between York Regional Police and a manned aircraft, Drone Center registration, as well as document uploads and logs.
So today we'll be covering Module 2, as you can see, and it's going to take approximately 50 minutes. In this presentation, again, we'll be covering advanced operations, pilot certification, and flight reviews. To the right, you'll see that we'll be covering 901.62 to 901.87. Again, we have a total of 8 modules. This is Module 2 of 8. To highlight where we are on our study guide roadmap, I've given you another illustration. Again, we're on Module 2 of 8. We'll be doing advanced operations, SFOCs, and flight reviews. And don't forget, our ground school guide is free of charge with the purchase of Drone Center. You'll be able to plot your logs, schedule a maintenance task, as well as emergency tracking via our calendar. Now, you want to be compliant, so prepare your flight records with Drone Center. Prepare for your exam, keep track of your flight and maintenance records with ease of use. And don't forget, again, we do have a logbook, our plain English cars, plus a PDF soft copy of 300 plus pages with selectable links for your ease of use while studying. In addition to this, we have study practice tests, and they are incorporated into Drone Center free of charge. Now, why create your own when we've created a great software for you? See the link in our description to get started. So before we begin, let's discuss what RPAS actually means. In this presentation, and for the rest of the modules, in fact, I'll be referring to drone, but the actual definition, or term I should say, is remotely piloted aircraft system, which means a set of configurable elements consisting of a remotely piloted aircraft, its control station, the command and control links. So what that basically means is your ground control, which could be your cell phone, your RC controller, and the actual drone. It's the entire system, or the aircraft, I should say. Now, remotely piloted aircraft is a navigable aircraft other than a balloon, rocket, or kite operated by a pilot who's not on board. So basically, it could be anything as long as you're not on board of it and it's not a balloon, rocket, or kite. Now, that's what we call an RPAS. As we take a further deep dive into our material, we need to take a look at what basic and advanced operations consist of. Now, this particular section or picture can be found in the RPAS AIM section in the Aeronautical Information Manual. This is where this picture has been sourced from. Now, basic operations require 400 feet AGL ceilings, 100 feet above any building you can operate or any structure, and you can also operate 200 feet horizontally from it, as long as if you're looking to fly 100 feet above any structure. Now, this sets for the maximum altitude. As for controlled airspace, you need to fly outside of controlled airspace. When we're looking at other airspace, you need to operate outside of restricted airspace, outside of emergency security perimeters. This includes first responders, outside of special aviation events. So this includes air shows, anything like that. Outside an advertised event, as we do know, advertised events actually require a special flight operation certificate. That means you file a document, basically a 2-page document to Transport Canada, outlining your procedures, standard operating procedures as well. You need to be 3 nautical miles from military aerodromes. Now, for advanced operations, you also need to be 400 feet AGL, that's a maximum ceiling. If you're looking to fly above any building, the maximum height is 100 feet again of any structure. As long as you're within 200 horizontally foot radius of that building, or as approved by air traffic control within a controlled airspace. If you're looking to fly in controlled airspace, you need to have air authorization from NAV Canada within the controlled airspace. You also need to fly outside restricted airspace, outside emergency security perimeters. This includes first responder points, outside special aviation events, outside advertised events, which you require SLOC as mentioned earlier, and 3 nautical miles from military aerodromes. Now, the rule on flying with military aerodromes is quite interesting because the minimum filing time for restricted airspace more or less 24 hours, maximum 30 days to get that approval. Now, going over the proximity to people, when we're looking at basic operations, it's 100 feet or 30 meters away from people. We're looking at advanced operations. The category starts at 16.4, 30 meters but no less than 5 meters, or 100 feet but no less than 16.4 feet. So as we go further down, in basic environment, you cannot fly over people. In an advanced environment, you can. Now, to fly within the advanced operations category, it's the level of safety assurance that unlocks that particular category, or more or less airspace, if you may. So when we're looking at that, there is a Transport Canada Safety Assured list, which all drone pilots should refer to. And as you can see, there are declarations on control airspace near people or over people. Now, the manufacturer is the one that is required to submit the level of safety assurance for that aircraft, depending on the risk threshold they would like that aircraft to go to. So the aircraft may have multiple props, a parachute system. It may be extra frangible. In addition to this, there are redundancies that manufacturers have to ascribe to, as well as minimum landing distance that manufacturers have to ascribe to as well. So these are the things that manufacturers look at when they submit for the safety assurance. And another document we talk about a little bit later on called the Standard 922. But at the moment of the taping of this video, there was over 507 entries of safety assured aircraft into Transport Canada's portal. Now, all these things most of these safety assured aircraft at this time were self-declared. Transport Canada will be changing this eventually from the self-declaration into a more definitive stance. But at the time of this taping this video, there's 507 aircraft. So as we go further down the list, as you can see on the advanced operations side, over people is yes, but that's based on the safety assurance factor. So again, those standards are Category B, 30 meters but no less than 5, Category C, 5 meters or less, which is basically over people. So that's what this document's referring to. You can refer back to our last slide in regards to what those safety assurance categories go through. Now, going further down, in the advanced operations environment or safety assured category, you can fly near airports, near heliports, or near uncertified aerodromes. In addition to this, you can fly night operations with sufficient position lights, and this goes for basic as well. Given we are discussing advanced operations airspace, we should also go through right-of-ways and hierarchy. Drones are on the lowest level of this list, so aircraft in distress are on top, balloons, glider under tow, glider, airships, drones, RPAS, UAVs, they're at the bottom. They're the most maneuverable, so the more maneuverable you are, the lower you are on this list. So as we look towards flying our drones, you want to make sure that you give way to manned aviation aircraft at all times, and making sure that you're making those appropriate calls. If you have a radio, if you don't, get one. This will definitely help. So looking at the IAM section 4.16, it states the following. Avoiding collision is a shared responsibility of all pilots. To further minimize the risk of collision, pilots of traditional aircraft should exercise caution when conducting flights below 400 feet AGL in uncontrolled airspace, and take additional care to fly standard circuits at uncertified aerodromes, because that is where other airspace users are going to expect aircraft to be. Now, given that the statement says it's a shared responsibility, the right-of-way and rules hierarchy still apply to drone pilots no matter what. Again, drones are more maneuverable than manned aviation aircraft, so if you do see one, you should land right away, you should give way, and you should make due attempts to ensure that you land your drone when you do see a manned aircraft. Ultimately, if you do crash, you'll be facing fines and penalties at the end of the day if you do not avoid manned aviation aircraft. So, as it states, it's a shared responsibility of all pilots, meaning if you have a radio, broadcast your intentions. If you are seeing another aircraft and you think you're going to be coming into collision with that other aircraft, be a good airman, broadcast your intentions, or land if you're unsure if that aircraft may come into contact. The see and avoid principles also focus on good communication, whether it be calling airport management or calling on the radio. At Sugu, we can proctor radio certifications and licenses. See our link description below to find out more details on buying a radio or taking a test from Industry Canada. So this section covers off how you know you're operating in advanced operations. And let's talk about basically what are they. So you're conducting advanced operations if one or more of the following conditions or criteria exist. You're operating your drone within 5.6 kilometers of an airport or 3 nautical miles, or 1.9 kilometers, 1 nautical mile from a heliport. You're operating your drone in controlled airspace. You're flying near people, which is 30 meters, but not less than 5 meters, 100 feet, but not less than 16.4, or if you're flying less than 5 meters, 16.4 feet from people or bystanders. Now, the key thing is bystanders. Now, if you brief people that are kind of considered outside of your operation, as long as they're briefed, they are no longer bystanders as they've been briefed as a part of that operation. More or less, it should be a closed site in which these briefings take place. So if you're running a construction site and there are workers below, you should be briefing the people in and around this operation. So covering off, obviously 901.69, B, C, and D, this is what this furthermore clarifies. We have further links in this presentation if you were to get the actual downloadable copy via Drone Center. Pilot certification requirements. 901.63 and 901.64 cover basically the age and what is required to both pass the exam and the flight review. Now, if you want to exist in this operation, in order to fly advanced operations, you need to be 16 and have your pilot certificate with you. The requirements are pass the exam and flight review, and you need to be 16 years of age. If you're younger than 16, you will need adult supervision. So that's what 901.63 and 901.64 are covering. Minimum age, passing the exam, and flight review to operate within the structure. Again, if you pass the exam, you do not necessarily have your advanced operations certification. You actually need to do the flight review. The flight review is what's actually unlocking the advanced operations certificate. So again, if you pass the exam, your certification will still be a basic certification until you do your flight review. Now, if you fail your exam, you have to wait a minimum of 24 hours. Now, your pilot certification is valid for 2 years and or 24 months. So 901.65 covers, basically cover that in Module 1. Your pilot certification is valid for 2 years. You can go through a self-paced study program with us at Sugu. We minister these actually every month in person or on Zoom. You also can complete this via sugudrones.com online at your own pace, or conduct a flight review, or you can recomplete the basic or advanced exams. So you need to follow recency requirements set out in 921.04. Recency requirements via Drone Center are also there. The system also notifies you, and a great bonus, you can upload your certification documents to the system as well. I also want to clarify that these are recency requirements. It does not make your license expire. More or less, these are recency requirements to ensure that you are safe to fly within the airspace and ensure that you're up to date with current air law. This is why we have these recency requirements to ensure that you are safe to yourself and other airspace users around you, and that you're not causing willful negligence by just flying your drone and not knowing the regulations. Now, it's extremely important that you have your certification documents physically with you or electronically. The regulations state that no pilot shall operate a remotely piloted aircraft system under this division unless both of the following are accessible: the pilot certificate and document demonstrating that the pilot meets the recency requirement, which means essentially you can have your certification, but if you don't have your recency documentation, that's as well as not having your certification at all. So 901.66 states proof of recency or certification should be on your person, at least on yourself or electronically, and there are multiple ways of doing this. Again, make sure that you have your certification documents and ensure that you at least have it electronically with you. So covering off the examination rules from 901.67 and 68, it states that you need to take the exam yourself without help or cheating, and you should not copy the exam questions. It's prohibited. If you fail, you need to wait 24 hours. So that's what 901.67 and 68 cover. So 901.71 covers information that you need to provide air traffic control with flight in control airspace. So here's my plain English translation. Follow this list and create an account at portal.navdrone.ca for auto approvals and manual approval from ATC with the list of criteria, as you see in 901.71. NavDrone takes care of this whole process in an automated fashion. Nav Canada will need to approve your flight before you take off. Air traffic may allow you to exceed this. Air traffic control may allow you to exceed this if the vertical confines are, if your flight are approved. The designated airspace handbook defines all of this for Canadian airspace, aside from the actual NavDrone, of course. So 901.73 basically states follow the airport's established procedure, meaning call the airport, call the aerodrome operator before you fly to ensure that you have clear communication on sense and see and avoid. Basically, it states 901.73, no pilot shall operate a remote pilot aircraft system under this division if the aircraft is within 3 nautical miles from the center of the airport, within 1 nautical mile from the center of a heliport, unless the operation is conducted in accordance with established procedure with respect to the use of remote pilot aircraft system applicable to the airport or heliport. Now, to break this down to plain English, if you're flying in advanced operations and are within 3 nautical miles of an airport or 1 nautical mile from a heliport, you should follow the airport or aerodrome's established procedures. If looking to find out established procedures, you should consult the CFS, the Canadian Flight Supplement, which is available for a small fee via Nav Canada. In addition, Flight Plan Go provides free copies of CFS data online. So lastly, manned aviation and drones do share the skies, and below 400 feet, manned aircraft will attempt to utilize active scanning to locate RPAS or drones. Since drones are very, very small, manned aviation aircraft have a hard time as is spotting it. So try to help them out. If you have a radio, make that call and get those established procedures before you fly in these types of environments. One thing I'd like to note is that if airport management or airport operations essentially blocks you from flying, if you're, let's say, in an uncontrolled environment or flying near a heliport, you should try your best to attempt to come to a reasonable ground understanding of flying within their airspace. Again, if you're flying in controlled airspace, you ultimately do need approval from Nav Canada or NavDrone. But if you're flying in an uncontrolled environment and airport manager absolutely just blocks you out completely, you have the right as an airspace operator to use it within the confines of the law, obviously. So again, try to talk with the aerodrome operators if you're getting blocked out for some strange reason. You know, if you've applied and you've talked to them and you've notified them and they're still saying no, ultimately, let's say if it's a heliport or an aerodrome, you should try to come to a mutual understanding of safety and try to fly your drone without creating harm or do harm to their operation. Again, to specify, if you're in a controlled environment, let's say you're flying near Toronto Pearson, you need permission from NavDrone or Nav Canada via portal.navdrone.ca and ensure that you have the applicable approvals before you fly. So ultimately, they do have a say if you take off from their property, but they do not have a say if you fly above their property. Nav Canada is the one that actually controls the airspace. In regards to conducting flight reviews, now you need to be a minimum of 18 years of age, hold a pilot certificate. In addition to this, you need to successfully have passed your flight reviewer's exam. So you can't just be conducting flight reviews without also being affiliated with the school. So the minimum requirements are that, again, you need to be 18, hold a minimum advanced operation certificate. In addition to this, you also need to complete the flight reviewer's exam. Before you can actually apply for the flight reviewer's rating, you need a minimum of 6 months of experience. Now, looking at the flight review exam format, there are 30 questions. It's online. It's a 90-minute exam, which means lots of coffee breaks, and it's an 80 minimum pass mark. The exam is a $50 fee. So again, save up for it. It is a little bit more expensive than the others. Given we are on the topic of flight reviews, we are always actively looking for flight reviewers in the regions of British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Northern Ontario, Quebec, and Newfoundland. If you're interested in becoming a flight reviewer, please message us at customercare@sugu.ca or info@sugu.ca, and someone will surely get back to you. This is something that you can do post-graduation from your advanced certification. So 901.86 covers what training providers need to provide to Transport Canada in order to actively still be a training provider. Now, flight schools must provide a list of all active flight reviewers and ensure flight reviews meet government standards. So that means submitting to the minister the name of any person that is affiliated with the school, ensuring that the person referred to in paragraph A conducts flight reviews in accordance with section 901.87. And if the person ceases to be affiliated with the school, you need to notify the minister of that fact as well. Now, 901.87 covers the conduct of the flight review. Basically states that no person shall conduct the flight review for the purposes of subparagraph 901.56, 901.64c, or 901.65b unless a flight review is conducted in accordance with section 921.06. So let's see what that is exactly. You've written your advanced exam, and they've confirmed your physical identity, your site survey, emergency procedures, incident discussions, pre-flight, takeoff, navigation, distance recognition, and landing. In addition to this, your flight reviewer must also confirm the candidate has written emergency procedures and it conforms to 901.23 requirements. Your flight reviewer will confirm your drone is registered and meets the applicable weight category. Note, if you're operating a Mavic Mini, this can be used, but keep in mind it needs to be used within the 250 gram to 25 kilogram category. So that means don't tape a penny to your Mavic Mini. What I would do is use a Mavic Mini 2 battery, use approved manufacturer approved parts, as you'll also have to delineate how do you know if your drone is within center of gravity. So having a part that won't experience weight shift in flight is very important. Now, most people ask, is there an established set fee for flight reviews? Generally, they range between $190 to $350. That's established fees for all schools across Canada. Generally, they're within that range, and they're subject to what the school may want to charge based on either travel or location or where you are. They may charge you gas mileage as well, or may even come directly to you. So covering off some basic excerpts of the regulations, 901.56 basically goes over basic operation and recency requirements. 901.64 covers advanced operation certificates. 901.65 covers advanced operation recency requirements. 901.83 covers requirements for being a flight reviewer. 921.05 covers flight reviewers and their affiliation status. Alright, congrats, you've completed our module. Don't forget to visit CanadianDronePilots.ca as well as the Canadian Drone Pilots Association on Facebook. Now, we're going to be going over a case study as well as Drone Center registration, document uploads, logbook functionality, as well as maintenance records. So don't forget to watch our module on Drone Center as well as don't forget about our case study. So today we'll be going through Drone Center registration, adding a drone, updating your pilot's logbook, site survey, as well as document uploads. So here we begin. Alright, so what you're going to want to do first is hit sign up. You're going to want to fill in these survey questions to the best of your ability. The most important part is your email and your password. Okay. You're going to then want to add a card to the system. It's then going to load up, and it's going to prompt you to enter your card details. At this point, you enter your card details, you save your card information. The system will then process. That bar at the bottom will go green, means that we accepted your card. At this point, you're going to subscribe to the plan. The furthest left will be the best for you. You'll get an unlock of everything as we described: manuals, logbooks, exams, everything that you'll need to pass your Transport Canada exam. And you'll get 7 days of a free trial. You'll hit start trial. It will then process. A check mark will go green. Okay. Now we're good to go. Now at this point, if you try to play around with the system, it's going to tell you that you need to accept and confirm through an email. You're then going to visit your email. It's going to say no reply at dronecenter.com. You're going to confirm your account. Now sometimes it says suspicious link. If it does, go ahead and click proceed. Now your account's unlocked. Okay, so now we're going to go through obviously our fleet management tool of adding an aircraft. Now what Drone Center does too is it creates a QR code, and you could print this and add it to your aircraft's registration. If you're an organization, if you want maintenance tracking, if you want to pull up the details of your drone if you're on the road. So here's a drone that's already been registered to DJI M600, and info and details have been entered in, like manufacturer's name. As you can see, we're going down below. This is how we actually enter and input the details. Every single one of these fields actually need to be updated before you can add an aircraft. Okay, so you need to fill in every single one of these fields, and as you can see, I'm just going ahead and selecting every single field. Without it, you can't do anything. You can also retire an aircraft in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, you can choose a drone photo by going to your desktop and updating that from there. But once you have all the information, you're going to hit Update Aircraft, and that's going to add that aircraft in your fleet list along with a QR code. Okay, so that aircraft's now added. If I were to take my phone and scan it and add that button to the drone, I'd be able to pull up my logbook directly. So now here's maintenance records. If we wanted to add a maintenance record, those details are there. We're going to go back to our fleet, and we're going to take a look at our flight logs at this point. And we can see that nothing's there yet, but if we want to add a flight log, what we do here is just go through all the details, specified details that the fields call for. You want to enter in every single one of these details as shown, and once these details are all added in, and I'm typing them in for you right now, as you can see, selecting the date, selecting the time, start time first, and then end time. Make sure you want to click that clock. That's your end time. Okay, and enter in these fields. Some of these fields are actually pre-canned. Okay, but you want to make sure you enter in any applicable descriptions the system may need or you may require later on. Right, entering valuable data like humidity, precipitation, cloud coverage. These are all great information in terms of data and record keeping. Now, Drone Center is very, very powerful in which you can process and upload orthomosaics. And this is all for that little low rate plan that you would have selected in the beginning. Okay. Now, you're going to see once we've done all these things, it actually goes to our calendar. That's quite amazing. Every function that we do in the system, the calendar reflects it. So now, let's take a look at creating site surveys, and this is the best way to unlock airspace in the correct manner. So if you ever want to fly an advanced airspace or control airspace and you're unsure, Drone Center can handle that for you. So first and foremost, we're going to want to go through our details of creating a site survey, entering our aircraft details, our altitude. Then we're going to type in our location. Once those locational details are typed in, you can see that you can pop up and search, let's say Markham. You can search your closest airspace. You can select precipitation, cloud coverage, rain. It's all here. In addition to this, Drone Center has a feature where you can actually see live aircraft that are flying around, and you can actually append this to your site survey. It's quite amazing. So these are our selectable layers and fields. I'm going to go ahead and click live aircraft and see how much aircraft come up here. Oh, we're seeing plus 25 up to, that's great. And we can actually see an aircraft, a couple aircrafts flying around here. Okay. And these are at this instant moment. It was one of the great functionalities of our site survey, Drone Center, at this moment of where these aircraft are. So we're going to go ahead and attempt a site survey at this point. And we're going to zoom into our layer. We're going to select satellite at this point as well. Okay. We're going to zoom in. And let's choose a park. We're going to zoom right into a park here. Let's choose a park to do our site survey at. Okay, now this is a very, very basic survey. Now our application, Drone Center Android, you can actually add people, and it's quite great and amazing. So let's go ahead and draw our box in which that we are flying our flight path and flight plan. Okay. Now it's going to tell you to click off on your first started point. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and capture this map screenshot. Now, what this map screenshot is actually a GeoJSON. So basically it's a polygon that it'll save, and what you can actually do with this later on is upload it to the Drone Center app, and it will actually allow the drone to fly the survey. Okay. So now that survey has been uploaded, and you can go ahead and hit submit once you've agreed to the policy here. And you can go to the main dashboard, your main home screen, and just check off details based on here are some KPIs, such as controlled airspace. You can see some charts that we have here for users, flight and control areas, or flights, number of flights. So that's our particular survey. Tells you what the min and max temperatures are, your type of drone, that safety assurance categories as well. So now let's take a look at document uploads. And this is actually a great feature for pilots that are operating in advanced airspace as well. We're going to go ahead and click document uploads. We're going to hit upload. Actually select the type of document we want to upload, pilot certificate. And we're going to want to hit upload at that point. And we're going to find the document that we want to hit upload. That's a pilot certificate. And once that's done, we're going to hit upload. Well, thank you for listening to me today. Today we covered registration, adding your drone, uploading pilot records, such as your logbook, site survey, and document uploads. Again, if you're looking to get more information on practice tips on your exam, we have information such as our study guide, as well as logbooks, and all these tools for a very low nominal fee. Now, if you're struggling at all at any point with your exam or passing, please visit sugudrones.com and enroll in our courses. Drone Center is provided with enrollment to our courses. Now this brings us to this module's first case study. Unsuccessful visual scanning, Cessna NYRP drone. As mentioned earlier, this report along with visuals was created by the Transportation Safety Board of Canada. This initial accident happened roughly 17 months ago, on August the 10th of 2021, where a Cessna 172 aircraft end model collided with a Mathis 210 drone on short final for Buttonville Airport on runway 15. Given that this was considered an accident, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada was commissioned to conduct this investigation. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada, TSB in short, is an independent agency created by an Act of Parliament, the Canadian Transportation Accident Investigation and Safety Board Act, on March 29, 1990, with a mandate to advance safety in the air, marine, pipeline, and rail transportation in Canada. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is separate from Transport Canada. The investigator in charge of this file number Alpha 21 Oscar 0069 RPAS aircraft collision, was Peter Roundtree, Senior Regional Investigator of the Transportation Safety Board of Canada. Peter Roundtree comes with 25 years of experience and also led the Swissair 111 crash in Peggy's Cove. To specify, no finding of the board shall be construed as assigning fault or determining civil or criminal liability. The findings of the board are not binding on the parties to any legal, disciplinary, or other. A copy of this report can be found in the link description below for the original report. This is a copy of the original. Now, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada gets involved in drone accidents when the drone is over 25 kilograms or 55 pounds, there is death or serious injury, or there's a collision with manned aircraft. Given that this was involving a Mathis M210 and a York Regional Police drone along with manned aircraft, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada had a duty to get involved. So let's talk a little bit about the YRP drone pilot involved in this accident. The YRP drone pilot was a part of the YRP Air Support Unit. This Air Support Unit is considered an elite group, and they're equipped with drones, helicopters, thermal infrared technology. At approximately 11:30 a.m. on August 10, 2021, a Cessna 172N operated by Canadian Flyers International, took off on a VFR training flight with a flight instructor and student pilot on board. At approximately 12:02, a York Regional Police Air Support Unit received a request from YRP Operations to provide imagery to lead in an active investigation. The flight was conducted over a period of approximately 60 minutes in an attempt to locate the individual, during which the pilot flew the RPA to various locations at the direction of the officer and the commanding officer operation, who was standing nearby. The RPA pilot landed the RPA at approximately 12:48 in order to change batteries before beginning a second flight. During this time, the pilots in the Cessna had completed their exercise in the practice area and were returning to the airport. They made the appropriate radio calls, declaring their intention to fly over the airport and join the right-hand downwind for 1-5. At around 12:56, the RPA pilot began his second flight, during which he would provide a video feed of the site where the police operation was taking place. The RPA was flown to a height of 400 feet above ground level and positioned in order to provide the necessary imagery. The RPA remained stationary while the police members close to the RPA pilot were able to watch the operation unfold on the TV display. The RPA pilot was also certified and qualified to operate a Rock A radio. In addition to this, had a radio on him when he was conducting the flight, but did not broadcast his intentions during his takeoffs or landings. During the course of the flight, the RPA pilot did have a visual observer, but the visual observer failed to also see the incoming aircraft, and both pilots failed to miss the incoming aircraft as it proceeded into land. It was later cited due to lack thereof training for visual observers in operations, which caused the visual observer to actually miss the manned aircraft as it proceeded into land. Now let's talk a little bit about the drone that was being flown. The drone was again, DJI Mathis M210. Weight of it was 6.14 kilograms and a max payload of 2.3 grams. Now, the YRP drones would have been equipped with DJI AirSense or ADS-B in, allowing their drone to see aircraft if they were flying in and around it, but given the Cessna 172 did not have ADS-B, ADS-B out, the active warning provided by the system was not given to the officer who was flying in the emergency. Given the cost of acquisition technology, most air operators opt to not install this technology, but dates have been posited for the wider rollout of ADS-B for classes A, B, C, D, and E, but there are no current definitive dates for class C, D, and E airspace in which this operator pilot was operating from to launch ADS-B. There is currently a date of 2026, but this is pending further assessment. Here are some visuals showing where the drone crossed the runway center line, the extended center line, and in turn crashing nearby in a residential neighborhood. Now let's hear from the instructor pilot on board the Cessna 172 in regards to his story and sequence of events.
That day I was coming from the practice area, obviously from to the northeast of the airport, and we came overhead the airport at 1650 ASL. The usual, I made my radio calls, even though there was no one around. There was no traffic heard. We were the only plane using the field, basically. But I still made my radio calls. And we turned right-hand downwind as normal. Made another radio call. And then when we turned final, we're lined up on final. I felt a jolt, pretty strong jolt, and we were shaken up a little bit, and we landed, some seconds later, and then I thought I hit a large bird because I've had bird strikes before, so I know how they feel. We landed, and then I told the school over the radio that I thought I hit a bird, and they told me just to go park the plane in front of the maintenance hangar. So when I got out of the plane, I noticed a large dent, and the photographs are there. And but there was no blood, as usual on when you hit a bird. There's blood, but this time there was no blood. And I still didn't know what happened until a few hours later when the police called me. And after a few phone calls, I asked them, so why do I have to talk to you? Why do I have to talk to you as being the police? And they said, oh, because it was our drone that was involved. So that's how we found out that the drone was a police drone. So it was not, basically everything was going, it wasn't a clear day for sure. It was cloudy and nobody was flying. There was no other aircraft in the pattern or training. It was just me and my student, the only ones using the field basically. But it's still, even though there was no one around, we did our proper radio calls and we were looking out until we felt the jolt. So as I was training a candidate for a PPL ride, for a private pilot license, on a 172, you turn base and you should have your flaps probably to 10 or 20 degrees. And you're not going faster than 70 knots. And then you maintain this, and then you turn final. Then depending on the exercise, you can leave the flaps at 10 or 20, and then slow yourself down to 65 knots. You're on final, you got to look out for other traffic, especially for traffic that's in front of you, below you, because your eyes are, and you're trying to guide the student to line himself or herself to line themselves up with the center line, and also to look out for any traffic that might be coming onto the runway, because that happens. So the lookout is constant. By the way, the student that was training with me that day was an excellent student, and I think part of the success of me as an instructor is because I teach students as they turn from downwind to base to constantly be looking out towards the runway, towards final, so that they establish some orientation. So my students are not looking inside, they're looking outside most of the time. They look inside to confirm the airspeed, but they develop the sense, because I constantly tell them, a good landing begins like mid downwind, because you gotta be constantly looking at the threshold, even though as you're about to turn from downwind to base, you gotta start looking towards the threshold, and then draw an imaginary line of the extended center line, and then from base you intersect that line, and then you turn final. So the lookout is always there, and that's why my students they're quick in getting their licenses. As I said, this student took only 46 hours. So my experience in flying is, in terms of hours, is 6,000 hours. I would say maybe 2,000 or 2,500 of those hours are instructing. I mostly teach instructor ratings and multi IFR. I was teaching a PPO student this time because of a family recommendation. And apart from instructing, I fly corporate, I've flown jets, I've flown turboprops, and all kinds of piston multi-engine aircraft. And one thing you always have to do is keep a constant lookout, because especially when in my experience of ferrying small engine twins or piston twins, the instruments are not that reliable. So you always have to be looking out. And, and that's, even when I was teaching private pilot candidates, I would tell them your biggest instrument is the windshield. That's what will teach you to fly by attitude, because you relate the dashboard or the glare shield to the horizon. There's Then you check inside just to confirm that you have the attitude that you want. But I've always teach my students to use the windshield as their biggest instrument, relating it to the horizon. But as I said, any professional drone pilot would have, first of all, asked for permission from the airport manager to operate. Then the airport manager, he would have told them to tune in to 124.8 and broadcast intentions. But that wasn't done. And as I said, second, any professional pilot flying an aircraft in an uncontrolled airport knows that apart from looking out, the second thing is you gotta make radio calls and you gotta listen to other aircraft in the area. That didn't happen. I heard no other radio calls. And obviously this police officer operator was not listening to my radio calls. Even though there was no one, the airspace was quiet. There was no one using the airport doing circuits or departing or arriving. We were the only aircraft. Despite of that, I made proper calls, just to announce myself. So I made calls that I was overhead the field, that I was joining the mid right downwind for 1.5, that I was turning base. So I thought I had the right of way anyways. And I was lined up. I was lined up properly at 65 knots, 70 knots, 500 to 600 feet per minute on approach to runway 15. So I had the right of way, and then I felt this impact, which, as I said before, I thought it was a large bird, but it turns out it was a police drone. So, in my opinion, this could have been this could have turned into a very serious accident, probably with with fatalities. So what are the consequences? What the consequences should be? I mean, we were doing everything proper, but this drone operator should at least be reprimanded or his license revoked, because he put the lives of 2 people in danger. So there should be consequences in terms of his license.
In going over the TSB report further, it states that the pilot of the unmanned air vehicle drone / RPAS had a VHF radio and was monitoring the frequency, but unfortunately, due to the emergency situation and task load, the pilot was unable to make calls or, in fact, see the aircraft coming in before it landed. Generally, in Class E controlled airspace, air traffic control does not provide separation. However, they do provide traffic information upon request by the pilot. In this occurrence, as per the report, the pilots were making their broadcast. Unfortunately, the RPAS pilot did not make any broadcasts. RPAS pilots are not required to make any broadcasts as per the current Canadian aviation regulations. They are meant to provide a listening watch and ensure that they at least enact the see and avoid principles of visual scanning. As detailed by the report, when an authorization is granted from an air traffic service, a telephone number for the relevant ATC unit is included in the authorization. This telephone number is to be used in case of emergency or loss of control of the RPA. This exchange of contact information between the RPA pilot and ATS is meant to satisfy the Canadian aviation regulations requirement on two-way radio communication. Unfortunately, this never happened in regards to call out or request by nav drone. The RPA pilot did not make this request. To further specify, given that this was Class E control zone, there was no tower for the RPA's pilot to communicate with. Instead, it would have been a call with the airport manager or operations supervisor. As a reminder, Transportation Safety Board of Canada reports are not meant to find fault, although at the top of the list it does list the flight crew of the Cessna 172 was unaware of the presence of airborne remotely piloted aircraft traffic. It is stating with present day means and present-day means of deconfliction, the air operator was unsuccessful in seeing the drones. Now, I will posit later my recommendations on what should be provided for deconfliction in regards to controlled airspace with manned and unmanned aircraft or drones or RPAS, but the report is looking at mitigative steps or findings to ensure that this does not happen again. Another finding does state that York Regional Police does not have to train the visual observers in regards to their current policy or briefed, but this policy has now been updated. In this report, it was found that the visual observer was not briefed on the operation nor trained. Thus, the visual observer did not scan the active sky, nor was he aware that he had to scan the active sky, thus allowing an aircraft and drone to collide with each other in the airspace. Finding 3 points a direct arrow at the standard operating procedures of the York Regional Police, basically stating that due to the pilot being task saturated and multiple things happening in the control zone and incoming aircraft, the pilot was unable to see and basically mitigate the impending collision. Finding 4 again points back to 3, saying that the pilot of the drone was task saturated, and then also points back that the Cessna pilot's visual scan was unsuccessful, leading to the crash. Now, this report also included 2 findings as to risk as part of the 10 standard TSB reports. It states that if pilots do not establish checklist, it will result in basically critical safety and procedures being omitted. And lastly, it goes to say, point 2, if remotely piloted aircraft operators who plan to operate in control airspace do not communicate their flight intentions with and receive authorization from the air traffic service provider, there is an increased risk of collision. So all in all, clear-cut case study, study on what not to do. So great report by Peter Roundtree in regards to findings and also findings as to risk. I'll be now presenting my preventative actions in regards to what and how things can be changed for future deconfliction. Some additional cursory notes. The York Regional Police have now enacted new SOPs where they are training visual observers to enact flights in the event that they do have situations like this in the future. I would like to note that the York Regional Police officer was indeed fined for this occurrence. We have provided some preventative measures in regards to RPAS safety risk aversion. We've developed some software actually on our end, which would help airspace users that have drones and also manned aviation aircraft for deconfliction. So basically, we advise NAV Canada to require DJI Airscope for all controlled airports. That's for Class E as well, and automate an Airscope broadcast ATIS. We've developed this. We also advise mandatory VHF broadcast by first responders with dispatch centers. That's remote flight following. Lastly, we would state that DJI-specific warnings for first responders as well. In discussing the police officers' actions, police officers every day put their lives at risk for members of the public, and not condoning the police officers' actions, there were several human factors issues at play during the sequence of events. So in the day, this police officer was task saturated and unfortunately did incur a collision with a manned aviation aircraft, which could have cost a loss of life, which is human factors. This is a great case study on human factors, and future steps have been taken to further mitigate these risks. Something not mentioned earlier is a step in preventative actions is equipping police drones with blue and red police strobes in addition to the navigational strobes seen on aircraft.
Hello everyone, my name is Frankie Wong. I'm a flight reviewer with Sugu Drones. We have 2 test sites conveniently located in Vaughan and Markham, and I can travel to surrounding areas in the York region for a nominal fee by request. I have been an airline pilot for the last 16 years, but as you all know, for the last year and a half during the pandemic, there has been a halt in the aviation industry. During this downtime, I saw it as an opportunity to explore what the drone industry is all about. So I obtained my own advanced operation license with Sugu, and now I am working as a pilot in command for one of the leading commercial drone operators in Canada. Drone is the future, and the future is now. As much as that sounds like a cliche, with my experience, this sector has a very bright future. Get your advanced operations license right now, and don't be left behind. My goal as a flight reviewer is to help my fellows RPAS operators elevate their professional standards and also promote the importance of safe operating procedures. With my experience and attention to details, I'm confident that you will not only walk away with a license, but also be competent to become a professional drone pilot. So book your flight review with me today. You can call 1-888-FLY-SUGU or go to the website sugudrones.com. I look forward to seeing you today. 如果你想考獲你無人機高級駕駛員嘅牌照，而家即刻 call 1888 Fly Sugu 或者係上我哋嘅 website sugudrones.com。我希望我可以盡快見到你。
Sugu, a safer future with technology.
Be sure to like and subscribe.